degrees above room temperature. So it's a wonderful protective device to keep our lander safe.
All right, so the next thing we're standing by for is
entry. Going to the top of the atmosphere, gradually slowing down. Right now, the vehicle's just now beginning to, very soon, we'll be beginning to feel the atmosphere touching it. Actually, entry is above the atmosphere slightly, so it's really not until half a minute or so after entry before we start really detecting the fact that atmosphere is slowing us down.
All right, we'll be standing by.
Yes, exciting.
Rob, now entry is scheduled for 11:47. The cruise state SEP and the entry times are locked in, correct?
They are. They're locked in when we selected the target and aimed the vehicle very precisely. That allows us to know exactly when we hit the entry point, which is 55 kilometers from the center of Mars.
So we know those times are locked in, but what about all the other events that take place in EDL?
Reggie Science reports dropping carrier power as expected.
Marco A and Marco B have telemetry.
Just heard, both Marcos have telemetry.
They are doing their job. These small CubeSats are relaying ones and zeros with a few seconds lag from the vehicle up to these two vehicles, and they forward them back to Earth to the Deep Space Network using X-band antennas.
And keep in mind, this was all an experiment. We weren't sure that this was going to work, but we had this need that we didn't have live communication in this particular mission.
Well, we don't really need communications. We don't need their information, except if something went wrong. We would very much like to get the data right now. We have other spacecraft.
We are now receiving InSight telemetry via the Marco relay.
It's flowing into this station. This is fabulous. That means the team now can watch the data flowing onto their screens as if they're commuting directly
This
to the
data
vehicle.
will provide detailed information about the state of the spacecraft throughout EDL.
We were on pins and needles waiting for that because we weren't really sure.
This is wonderful news. This will allow us to give some, if this continues working all the way to the ground and beyond, we might even see a first picture from the surface of Mars.
Wouldn't that be great?
Very soon.
Atmospheric entry on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
Here we go.
So in a few seconds, the vehicle will start sensing the atmosphere. I said 22 kilometers from the center of Mars. And it's going to start to slow down very, very slowly at first, but then faster and faster and faster till to reaches about 7 Gs. I made that mistake on the video. It's actually 7 Gs, not 12. And so but we'll still very, very quickly slow down. And from 15...
In approximately 1 minute, InSight is expected to reach its maximum heating rate.
Oh, yes.
Plasma blackout is possible during peak heating and could cause a temporary dropout of telemetry. This could last for as long as 2 minutes.
Yeah, the gas that comes off the heat shield as it's slowing down, it looks like a meteor if you're on Mars watching the streak go by. That brightness of gas does interfere with the radio reception. And so it's possible that Marco will lose that signal while it's going through this very hot entry.
But not to be alarmed.
Not to be alarmed. It's part of the design. We completely expect it.
Radio Science reports plasma blackout as expected.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Ground stations have reported plasma blackout, still receiving InSight telemetry via Marco.
Marco Alpha has carrier interruption.
InSight should now be experiencing the peak heating rate. Portions of the heat shield may reach nearly 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit as it protects the lander from the heating environment.
That's hot.
I'll say.
Marco Bravo shows carrier interruption, but still in lock.
InSight has passed through peak deceleration. Telemetry shows the spacecraft saw about 8 Gs.
Marco Alpha and Marco Bravo maintain lock.
Radio science reports carrier detected.
Yeah.
So, several different communications coming in.
InSight is now traveling at a velocity of 2,000 meters per second.
It seems to have passed this very critical point of peak heating and peak deceleration. The next big step is parachute inflation.
And you can see that on our timeline on the bottom of the screen. The next event is parachute deploy.
InSight is now traveling at 1,000 meters per second.
Very close.
Once InSight slows to about 400 meters per second, it will deploy its 12-meter diameter supersonic parachute. The parachute will deploy nominally at about Mach 1.7. Standing by for parachute deploy.
Radio science reports sudden change in Doppler.
Ground stations are observing signals consistent with parachute deploy.
Marco Alpha, Marco Bravo maintain lock status.
Telemetry shows parachute deployment. Radar powered on. Heat shield separation commanded.
This is really good news so far.
It's fantastic.
I'm on pins and needles.
We have radar activation where the radar is beginning to search for the ground. Once the radar locks on the ground and InSight is about 1 kilometer above the surface, the lander will separate from the backshell and begin terminal descent using its 12 descent engines. Altitude convergence, the radar has locked on the ground.
Yes.
Standing by for lander separation.
Carrier interruption on Marco Alpha and Marco Bravo.
Lander separation commanded. Altitude 600 meters. Gravity turn, altitude 400 meters.
We're getting there.
300 meters. 200 meters. 80 meters. 60 meters. 50 meters, constant velocity. 37 meters. 30 meters. 20 meters. 17 meters, standing by for touchdown. Touchdown confirmed. InSight is on the surface of
Wow.
That's fantastic.
This never gets old.
No, it doesn't, Rob. Control
what a
room
relief.
just erupted.
Fabulous.
Hands
Fabulous.
with the Marco team
Marcos.
there.
Christine, you did great. Jim Preiser, one of the key designers at Lockheed. Sandy Krasner,
What a
what a great
relief.
team. What a great. This is really fabulous.
Fantastic news.
Thank you.
Lots of fist bumping going on in there. What a relief. We've cut over to the camera over in Times Square. Boy, people are weathering the rain to see this.
They can't help it. This is the hardest part. Getting to the surface of Mars is very hard. This thing has a lot more to do, though. There's a lot more to go on both today and the days that follow before the science can begin. But just getting a vehicle from Earth to the surface of Mars is no mean feat.
And Rob, could you talk about that? I mean, just the mere accomplishment here that we're seeing.
You have to understand that this vehicle is very complicated. It uses 12 engines. Each of those engines are pulsed 10 times a second, producing these little tiny impulses, almost like little bullets that keep the vehicle going at a constant velocity as it approaches the ground, and still going over 5 miles an hour. So those legs feel a fair amount of crush. We still don't know the state of the vehicle right now. We need to look to make sure there are no rocks nearby. The solar panels will be in just a few. In about 5 to 10 minutes, will begin to open up. They're waiting for the dust to settle because the dust there's certainly a lot of dust being lifted in the air around the vehicle right now, which is now just settling.
So we're standing by. After touchdown, it waits a couple of minutes to give us an X-band beep. And so we are standing by for that. It's a communication that comes directly to Earth from InSight.
Yes. And it goes to the Deep Space Network. There's also something that might be happening now. If we're very lucky, InSight might be able to relay an image or a partial image taken just a couple of minutes after landing. So I'm standing by hoping to see that. But if that doesn't happen, we'll certainly get more images later in our Odyssey pass in about 5 hours.
We see Bruce Banner waiting for it.
There they are. They're looking
I don't know if they see it yet.
They're waiting. That's Justin Mackey and Bruce Banner looking carefully at the cameras to see what they might see. They're waiting for the image to come back.
So this is the first image from InSight itself. InSight is taking a picture with one of its two cameras.
Yes.
It's probably a view of what's directly in front of the spacecraft, right in front of the lander. This is a camera that it would be using to figure out, is this a good space?
Exactly.
Is it a good place to put down our instruments? So it is going to take an image and send that image to the Marcos. The Marcos, in turn, will relay it back down to Earth.
That's correct. They got it. Oh, now let's just wait. Let's see what they saw. There it is. Whoa, right. looks like a great place. That's a good scene. That's not far from where we'll be able to deploy the instruments. So it's great. I don't see a lot of.
Let's explain that image. Now, this image has a dust cover on top of it.
EDLCom, we have lost the signal for Marco.
You can see potentially a lot of
Radio science
lot of debris
reports
that might be on the camera lens.
for UHF.
So we don't know what I'm looking at.
Thank you, everybody on EDLCom.
All right.
Yeah. Yay, Marco. Congratulations.
Meantime,
Oh, there it is. You can see a better view. You can see that really is debris. And there's the horizon back there, the bluish sky. That's part of the lander deck on the front left. I can't take out, but it looks like there's not a lot of rocks in the field of view. But those dots you see there are very likely to be dust particles on the lens, the dust cover, which will be removed.
and we'll get another shot.
Yes.
Later on.
Yes.
Pretty
and a better,
amazing.
clearer view after the dust cover is removed. So, InSight's, CubeSat's relay communications job is done. They're now flying on. They're now taking pictures back toward Mars. Hopefully, MRO, which flew overhead, might have been lucky enough to capture the descent of this InSight lander under its parachute. While this was going on, MRO was flying overhead, recording the data, also monitoring the transactions and recording every bit of signal it could. But it also had the ability to take a picture, and maybe like we did with both Phoenix and later for Curiosity rover, we might be able to see the parachute inflated as well.
That would be fantastic. We are standing by now for that X-band beep.
Yes.
InSight phoning home saying, I'm here and I'm okay.
Well, thank you for the
System data on InSight core to the DSN and X-band.
Radio science reports X-band carrier detected.
The DSN and X-band radio science have acquired the X-band touchdown signal for InSight. X-band will continue for 4.5 minutes with InSight in nominal mode.
Copy that. Thank you.
Flawless.
Perfect.
Flawless.
We've got the beep. This was perfect case scenario.
This is what we really hoped and imagined in our mind's eye. Though we spend most of our visualizing all these bad things can happen. Sometimes things work out in your favor, and we'll look very carefully at the data to see what might have, how well it went. But it certainly looked like it was a very successful and perfect landing. We'll have to see as we get more data how well things go. And as the vehicle proceeds, the solar panels will be deployed. Hopefully, we're not on a tilt. It doesn't look like we are, but from the image, but the solar panels will be deployed safely, we hope, and we'll get confirmation of that around 5 o'clock local time here in about 4.5 hours, 5 hours from now.
And this is such a difficult feat in that because of the one-way light time, there is no way that any of these engineers could possibly control the vehicle. It all has to be done in commands and software.
We have to train it to do this work on its own.
Radio science reports nominal carrier 30 seconds past the first acquisition. So we're all nominal on the surface.
So the vehicle is completely nominal, reported nominal. It's happy. The lander is not complaining. We had a way to tell us if it was unhappy, and it wasn't. It's not unhappy. It's in a normal mode, and so it's going to chug along for the rest of the afternoon on Mars and finish the activities.
All right. Well, Rob, I know you're anxious to get in and
Yes.
to congratulate the
I am.
crew. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sitting here
Thank
and
you so
helping
much.
us out.
It was my
Explain
pleasure.
EDL.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll let you go and go congratulate your friends.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Ideal count MRO Electra on InSight Ops. Octal loop recording completed at 20:04:34.
As we had promised, we said we'd bring back the administrator to get your take on what was it like to be in that control room. Jim, what was it like?
Well, I'll tell you, it was intense, and you could feel the emotion. It was very, very quiet when it was time to be quiet, and of course, very celebratory with every little new piece of information that was received. It's very different being here than watching it on TV, by far. I can tell you that for sure now that I've experienced both. And then, of course, what's amazing is as soon as it was over, I got a call on my cell phone, and it was the phone number was all zeros. And whenever I get a phone call that's all zeros, it's got to be somebody important. I answered it, and it was the vice president.
Oh my gosh!
He watched the whole thing. He is absolutely ecstatic about our program. As you're aware, he's the chairman of the National Space Council. And he's been, of course, a keen advocate for what we do. To have him call within seconds of mission success is tremendous. And just so everybody knows, he wants me to say congratulations to everybody here at NASA and all of our international partners and everybody who has contributed to this mission. What an amazing day for NASA.
It is an amazing accomplishment in that this is something that is happening millions and millions and millions of miles away, and these people are able to do it.
Incredible. And what's fascinating is the whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking every milestone is something that happened 8 minutes ago, because that's
Yes.
the time lag to get a signal from Mars to Earth.
Yes.
And so it's kind of it's exciting, but then you have to step back and realize that this has already occurred in history. So it's a unique experience, incredible, and just the enthusiasm here is incredible.
So what's for the future? Looking ahead, 2020?
Well, let's get through December. So for the rest of we think about what's happening next. December 3rd, we're launching another American astronaut to the International Space Station. So that's going to be a big achievement, and it's going to be on a Russian Soyuz rocket that the last time we launched a human was not successful.
That was scary.
It was scary, but we figured out what the problem is. We're moving forward, and now we've got that underway December 3rd. Going forward from there, we're going to get the first science data back from the Parker Solar Probe on December 7th. So that's not too far away either. And then we've got OSIRIS-REx that will be in orbit around Bennu shortly after Christmas. So no shortage of exciting things. And then on January 1st, we're going to fly the New Horizons mission, which, for people who are not aware, that's the mission that went to Pluto back in 2014, gave us stunning images and data and information science on Pluto. And now that mission is still going strong. It's in what we call the Kuiper Belt now, which is an asteroid belt well beyond Pluto, and it's going to be taking images of Ultima Thule, which is an object in the Kuiper Belt, which we have never been able to go out there and take images of anything at close range before, and now we're doing it. So you ask what's happening next?
I asked.
we have. Right now at NASA, there is more underway, probably than I don't know how many years past. But it's like, there's a drought, and then all of a sudden there's all these activities all at once. So we're busy. We're going to be working through the holiday, but a lot of amazing discoveries to be made, and we're looking forward to it.
It's so funny because our Ask NASA question you basically answered is, does the success of NASA InSight influence the timeline for future manned lunar or Mars missions?
Well, certainly everything we learn about Mars at this point is going to help us understand how to do in situ resource utilization. So InSight could actually provide some really good information about whether or not there's liquid water on Mars, and maybe even where it is and how to get to it. We strongly believe that there's liquid water, 10 kilometers under the surface of Mars. So the key is, the answer is yes. The more we learn, the more we're able to achieve. And so to get to Mars, yes. But the lunar missions, the President's first space policy directive is to go to the moon, to go sustainably with international and commercial partners. So when we say sustainably, that means we're going to have reusability built into the system. And we're going to test and prove technologies at the moon that ultimately we can replicate at Mars. So we're going to retire risk, prove human physiology at the moon, which is only a 3-day journey, which means, if something goes wrong, you can get home safely. We saw that with Apollo 13. But we need to use the moon as a proving ground to accelerate our path to Mars. In the meantime, we're doing missions like InSight to learn as much about Mars as possible. InSight is going to help us understand really asteroid impacts as well, because it's got a seismometer, which is going to help us know how often is Mars getting impacted with asteroids. And if we're going to send humans there, it'd be important to know if those humans are going to experience asteroid impacts. So,
and that's pretty much our goal, is always learn from our missions and build upon those missions.
One after another. NASA has a long history of doing just amazing work in building on its past successes and, in fact, its past failures.
That's true.
I'll tell you, what an amazing time to be at the helm of this extraordinary agency.
Well, we are so glad that you are here to share it with us.
Well, again,
thanks for joining us.
A true pleasure. Thank you.
All right, and I'm sure you need to go in there
Yes.
and celebrate with those folks, but thank you for stepping out for us.
Absolutely. Thank you
so
much.
All right, take care. Now, Mars exploration is cool stuff, but if you're not convinced just yet, just talk to the InSight scientists and engineers. No one conveys the excitement more than the people who actually work on the mission.